Hi everybody, my name is Elizabeth Ramirez and my mentor is Dr. Brendan Clark. And we did a literature analysis over demoralization and social isolation among elderly individuals. And we decided to do this topic because research has found that a lot of elderly find it very difficult to keep up with the modern world, leading them to be isolated. And so research tends to tie this back to depression and say that the social isolation that's occurring is because these individuals are depressed, but there must be a different explanation since depression, your chances of getting depression when you're older actually decreases, so it doesn't make sense to say that we have all these elderly people struggling with isolation because they're depressed, when really it's only a small portion of that. And depression is actually often comorbid with something called demoralization, which in the early 70s used to be believed that it was a direct symptom of depression and anxiety. And as research started revolving around this topic a little bit more, in 1975, it was said that depression and demoralization are two distinct illnesses. And even though it was defined in the 70s, it's still a fairly new concept in that we don't have much research looking into demoralization. And so the definition isn't widely known. So the purpose of this literature analysis was to review demoralization among the elderly individuals and to shed light on the lack of knowledge we have regarding social isolation as a contributing factor. So what is demoralization? Well, demoralization is actually a mesh of symptoms that's not specific to one psychological disorder. And two major symptoms is loneliness and helplessness, and two others are despair and distress, which is strongly tied to the elderly community because these symptoms tend to arise when you start believing that the end of life is near. So it is mistakenly interchanged with depression since the definition isn't widely known. But there are distinct differences that make these two different illnesses. For example, depressed individuals are unable to feel pleasure while your demoralized individual just lacks the desire. For example, if you have two individuals that one is depressed and one is demoralized, and at once they both enjoyed hanging out with friends, well, if a depressed individual goes out with friends, they will feel no satisfaction from that. While your demoralized individual, they may hesitate at first to go out with friends, but once they're in the moment, they're able to experience some pleasure from that. And depressed individuals aren't able to complete actions, but this is because they lack motivation. And while your demoralized individual isn't able to complete actions as well, it's because they feel helpless. They genuinely don't know and feel that they are incapable of completing such tasks. And because demoralization is a mesh of symptoms that is not specific to one disorder, it's very commonly seen among patients attending psychotherapy. And it's relevant to the elderly individuals because it increases their chances of an additional psychological disorder. And a way we can account for this in future research is by incorporating a measurement that specifically measures for demoralized symptoms, such as the RCD scale, which originated in 2008 in the MMPI-2, which is an assessment for psychological disorders. And originally, this measurement, along with 9 others, was meant to add validity to the scale, to the MMPI-2, but research has actually shown that the RCD scale in itself has high validity. Now, to social isolation. It's actually one of the major symptoms related to demoralization, and this could be due to the strong relationship it has with loneliness, which if we go back to the first slide, one of the major symptoms for demoralization is loneliness and helplessness. And this isolation that's occurring with elderly individuals could be due to the fear that they're burdening others since they already struggle keeping up with the modern world. And as people get older, physical deterioration is natural, but it's actually been shown to be one of the most contributing factors for social isolation. And these individuals also report feeling an immense amount of loneliness. And while we can do many things to prolong the mobility decline, you can only do so much until you start to see a difference. And this does discourage the elderly individuals from having any intentions of being social with the community. In fact, functional status has been linked to social isolation with this age group. This was done by Shankar and colleagues when they looked into the elderly community and measured their difficulty in performing daily activities and had them complete a walking speed test. And what they found was that poor socioeconomic status was linked to unsatisfactory functioning. But when these individuals were given social resources, they were able to prevent deterioration from happening or at least decrease the severity. Isolation and loneliness does make one susceptible to risky behavior, mainly with drinking and smoking, and this is because it removes their opportunity from being influenced by positive behavior. So, and it's kind of, I like to tie this back to the example of a lot of us eat when we're bored. And so with the elderly individuals, if they're just at home hanging out, isolated from the community, and they already have the habit of smoking or drinking, they're going to continue to smoke or drink just like we eat when we're bored. And with age also comes with health implications, and health deterioration has actually been shown to trigger demoralization. And once this individual is moved on to the demoralized state, it decreases their chances of recovering. So additional research is needed to incorporate a measurement in studies that account for demoralized symptoms, and by doing so, this could delay death, and by that I mean that it can help those individuals move out of the demoralized state and increase their chances of recovering from any illness they may be already suffering with. And it would improve also overall happiness and quality of life, and it would allow psychologists to identify those who are at risk from social isolation and help them retrieve that social lifestyle. So emotions of demoralization are common across all disorders, but it's still important to not camouflage these symptoms with depression because it can make a huge impact in the way they're treated. These are my references.